Before internet memes, before viral cat videos, and long before your neighbor's tabby curled up on a sunny windowsill, cats were at sea, not just as stowaways or mascots, but as essential crew members, spiritual guardians, and silent witnesses to some of the most dramatic chapters in human history. Hidden beneath sails and between barrels, they hunted, they listened, they endured. This is not just a story about cats. It's about survival, loyalty, and the strange, mystical bond between man and animal on the most dangerous journeys imaginable. In the Age of Discovery, between the 15th and 18th centuries, European ships sailed beyond the horizon in pursuit of glory, spices, and conquest. From the Portuguese caravels skimming African coasts to the mighty English galleons braving Atlantic storms, these ships carried more than sailors and cannons. They carried cats, not for companionship at least, not primarily. These animals were the ship's most effective line of defense against one of the deadliest enemies of seafarers, rats. Long before pest control, cats were the biological solution to a biological threat. Ships were floating pantries loaded with flour, salted meat, dried fish, and barrels of cheese, all prime targets for rodents. But rats weren't just a nuisance. They gnawed through ropes, chewed into wooden hulls, and most dangerously, spread deadly diseases like the plague and typhus. One infected rat could decimate an entire crew before the ship reached land. That's where the cats came in. Cats could live off scraps, hide in tight corners, and silently stalk their prey in the pitch-black hold of a ship. Agile, nocturnal, and fearless, they became vital crew members. Sailors quickly learned that where there were cats, there was safety. A ship with no cats was seen as vulnerable not just to rats, but to misfortune itself. Soon, cats were seen as more than in many cultures, they became talismans of luck. Sailors in Spain and Portugal would touch the ship's cat for protection before setting sail. In Norse maritime lore, cats inherited the blessing of the goddess Freya, protector of the sea and fertility. Even hardened British naval officers eventually admitted, a ship without a cat just didn't feel right. These weren't anonymous animals either. Many had names, often inspired by their behavior or coloring whiskers. Saltpaw, Blackie, Embor. Some were fed better than the crew, given first pick from daily rations. Others had unofficial titles like rope guardian or grainkeeper. A few were even listed in ship's records not as pets, but as members of the ship's hierarchy. But life on the sea was harsh, even for the furriest sailors. The decks were freezing, especially at night or in polar waters. Ships were noisy, wet, and dangerously unstable. Still, the cats adapted. They slinked between barrels and crates, climbed masts during storms, and often curled up next to sailors for warmth. They learned to sleep through cannon fire, to vanish during combat, and perhaps most astonishingly, to detect storms long before any human could. Veteran sailors believed in their instincts. If the ship's cat began to meow excessively, hide for no reason, or pace the deck anxiously, it was a sign of bad weather, ahead or worse. In several surviving logs, captains recorded how their cats behaved erratically before a storm or ambush. Superstitious or not, it saved lives. Some even claimed their cats saved entire ships. As naval exploration expanded to new continents, cats continued to accompany the adventurers, always present, always quiet. They didn't command, they didn't steer, they didn't shout orders, but they watched, they hunted, they endured, and they survived. They were the first to spot a rat in the dark, the first to sense a leak, and sometimes the only living being still standing after a naval battle. In the coming sections, we'll explore their myths, their mysteries, and their moments of unexpected glory. But remember this, while captains drew the maps, cats protected the ink. Life aboard a ship was more than survival. It was tradition, superstition, and rituals, especially when it came to cats. These seafaring felines were not just mousers or mascots. Over time, they became woven into the spiritual and symbolic fabric of naval life. Too many sailors, cats were omens, guardians, and sometimes even prophets of the sea. And with this belief came an entire world of mysterious rituals and curious traditions. One of the most well-known customs was the ceremonial naming of the ship's cat. Whenever a new feline was brought aboard, a small gathering of the crew would take place. The cat would be named in a playful yet serious rite, given a small bowl of milk when available, and welcomed by rubbing its fur with sea salt, a symbolic blessing to bind it to the vessel. This act was believed to tie the animal's soul to the ship, ensuring it would never abandon the crew during a storm or mutiny. Some captains believed a cat's loyalty was as crucial as the compass or the sails, and so this baptism became sacred. But the rituals didn't stop there. Before expected storms or naval clashes, some crew members would comb the cat's fur with wet fingers, whispering hopes of calm seas. In several maritime cultures, this act was seen as a prayer disguised as grooming, a subtle but powerful gesture asking the spirits for mercy. And in many ports, sailors refused to board a ship that didn't have a cat on board. A feline absence was seen as an open invitation for disaster. Superstitions surrounding cats at sea were both fascinating and complex. A black cat, which on land was seen as a bad omen, had the opposite meaning at sea. A black cat aboard was thought to bring good luck and protection. If the ship's cat licked its left paw first, it meant smooth sailing ahead. If it became restless or meowed persistently at sunset, sailors would brace for rough weather, betrayal, or death. Some even claimed that if the cat stared long into the waves without blinking, a shipwreck was imminent. The treatment of cats reflected their spiritual significance. If a ship's cat died, it wasn't simply discarded. It was given a burial at sea, often with fabric wrappings, whispered farewells, and sometimes even small charms or offerings. Sailors believed that mistreating or disrespecting a cat would not only curse the current voyage, but every voyage thereafter. Stories passed down told of ships that sank after throwing a cat overboard. Whether coincidence or not, the fear remained. There were also tales of ghost cats aboard ships, phantom felines that appeared before disaster, seen darting across decks, or heard purring near sleeping sailors moments before tragedy struck. Even rational sailors who scoffed at omens avoided speaking ill of the ship's cat. Better safe than cursed, they'd say. The deep emotional connection between sailors and cats was not just about superstition, it was also about companionship. Life at sea was brutal, lonely, and often hopeless. A cat's silent presence brought comfort, a reminder of home and warmth in a world of cold winds and salt water. Sailors often tattooed their beloved cats onto their arms or chests, believing their spirit would continue to protect them. And when war broke out or tempests rose, many clung to the belief that if the cat stayed calm, all would be well. Through rituals, myths, and mysteries, these cats weren't just part of naval history, they were the soul of it. They padded silently through battles and births, superstition and science, remembered not in official logbooks, but in the sacred stories whispered by the sea. Across the pages of forgotten journals and dusty naval records, a few feline names have managed to carve their legacy into maritime history. These weren't ordinary cats. They were survivors of shipwrecks, mascots of warships, and legends whispered about in the lower decks for decades. Some became as famous as the captains they served under and, in some cases, far more beloved. One of the most remarkable stories is that of Unsinkable Sam, a black and white cat whose tale seems too incredible to be true yet is documented in multiple naval records. Sam began his career aboard the German battleship Bismarck during World War II. When the ship was sunk by British forces in 1941, only 118 of the 2,200 crew survived. Among them, floating on a wooden plank, was Sam, rescued by the British destroyer HMS Cossack. Sam earned his new nickname, but fate wasn't finished testing him. Months later, the Cossack was torpedoed. Once again, the ship went down, and once again, Sam survived. Now seen as more than lucky, he became a symbol of resilience and hope. He was transferred to the aircraft carrier HMS Ark Royal. Ironically, it too was torpedoed and sank. And yet, again, Sam was found clinging to floating debris, his fur soaked but his spirit unbroken. After surviving 3 sinkings, Sam was finally retired from naval service. He lived out his days peacefully in a sailor's home in Belfast, his portrait painted and his legend preserved. He had crossed seas, survived bombs, and outlived 3 ships. To the men who had sailed with him, Sam wasn't just a cat, he was a symbol that no matter how dark the sea, survival was possible. Then there was Simon, the cat of the British frigate HMS Amethyst. In 1949, during the Yangtze incident in China, the ship came under unexpected fire. Amid chaos and casualties, Simon not only survived an explosion that wounded many, but continued to hunt rats and comfort injured sailors during the long siege. His dedication earned him the Dickin Medal, the animal equivalent of the Victoria Cross. He was mourned by the entire crew upon his death, buried with full honors. Countless other unnamed cats etched their stories into maritime history. Some are remembered only through photographs perched on cannons, curled beside boots, standing proud on slippery decks. Others live on in sailors' tattoos, in the sea shanties sung after too much rum, or in family stories passed from grandfathers to grandsons. These cats may never appear in history textbooks, but their contribution was real. They didn't just kill rats, they gave comfort in grief, calm in storms, and courage in battle. They helped maintain morale, prevented illness, and in many cases, were the last friendly face a sailor saw before dying. In a world ruled by harsh winds and harder men, these soft-pawed travelers reminded everyone aboard what it meant to fight and feel at the same time. So next time you see a cat napping in the sun, remember some of their ancestors rode out typhoons, dodged torpedoes, and watched continents drift by from wooden decks. They didn't ask for medals, they didn't give speeches, but in their silent way, they helped shape the course of exploration and survival. And now it's your turn. If you were fascinated by these unsung heroes of the sea, share this video with someone who loves history or cats. Hit that like button, subscribe for more untold stories, and let us know in the comments, which of these cats would you take on a voyage across the world? The sea is vast, but their paw prints are still. They're etched into its deepest legends,